So let me also just answer the one other piece of that question was, what do you do if you see something surprising? Right, where do you report? And this is something where, just to come back to something I mentioned in my opening remarks, the AARO is our lead agency for UAPs. And while we've talked about life in this context, most UAPs, I think when one looks at the data in more detail, are going to turn out to be phenomena we understand. We saw this with some of the balloons or our commercial jets. We saw those examples. Some UAPs, and we saw this with the Chinese balloon that flew over, is an issue sometimes of national security. So we actually do want to encourage people, just from that angle, to report it. So, before we'll transition to summary, but just want to answer on that question, that, to keep in mind that, the AARO's role is to be the prime source for understanding those things. And what our charge is to think about what's NASA's role. And I think NASA, and this is something, I want to now go back to discussion. We didn't have that much time for it. Just to come back to, what we see as NASA's role in this. I think one piece we've talked about is NASA can help remove the stigma. NASA can draw more of the scientific community in. And I think what NASA can help do is provide standards of high data quality. I think one of the things that many of us who've not looked at this before, I'd certainly put myself in this group, was struck by the limited nature of the data, that many events had insufficient data, and that in order to get a better understanding, we will need to have high quality data where we understand its provenance, data from multiple sensors. And I think one of the things that, even from the same sensor, as we saw, in Josh's analysis, also in the event Sean showed us, when you can observe event over time and get velocity information, that gives you a lot of additional information. So we're going to want things with high frame rate. We're going to want things from multiple perspectives. So I think those are all going to be pieces of things that we want to think about. I think this is an opportunity for citizen science. I think if we can come up with recommendations in our roadmap that point to ways in which we could people can collect data. I remain a big fan of these things. They do take over our lives too much, but they are fabulous data collectors and I don't know, there's something like 3-4 billion of them that are on the planet. And NASA, I think, has the prestige and visibility to develop an app or work with companies to develop apps that could collect data in a uniform and centralized way that I think will, most of the stuff that's collected is going to turn out to be commercial planes, balloons. When you have multiple cameras, you can eliminate some of the optical limitations of ghosting and those effects. Some of them will almost certainly be novel physical phenomena, right? I think it is, we have learned a lot about our planet and how the universe works. There's a lot we don't know, right? I think, as scientists, what is the most exciting thing is the surprises. And I think that there are things that continue to surprise us about our own planet. There's phenomena in our atmosphere and the ionosphere that we probably haven't seen yet. Or perhaps we've seen and not noticed yet, right? And there's, I think, a long history in science when you look back and you realize that this discovery had a pre-discovery. So people had seen something before, and we're missing it. And those pre-discoveries were not of note, often because we had biases against seeing it, but often because there was limitations in data quality. And, one of the things I was taught is when you have a question you don't know how to answer, you start by getting better data. And, we're coming, I get to do the summary, and as the chair, I get to, summarize a conclusion. And we need better data, would be my takeaway. And we need more uniform data. And since I'm so proud of my haystack, we need to be able to understand what's in the haystack. And it's a lot more complicated than a haystack in a sense, right? It's got commercial planes, it's got, drones, and, I think the number of drones out there is large and growing and will be a continual source of confusion. We were charged to think about air safety. Understanding and characterizing, seeing what's going on with drones is also, I think, going to be an important air safety issue. So we'll need to, to understand the unknown, or to start to study the unknown. Another important piece is always going to be characterizing the known really well. This is the part, I think, of a lot of science that seems dry and boring, but it's calibration and understanding the events you expect to see. In thinking about this area, one of the groups of people that people talk to are particle physicists doing experiments at CERN, where they go through the effort of finding extremely rare events to find new particles. And in order to do that, you need to understand the standard predictions well. So I think another part of the whole story, and I know this is something AARO is working hard on in the context of military, it's like you've got to characterize what the known things are. When you've got that F-35 flying past a balloon, what does it see? What does it see at sunset? What does it see at odd observing angles? And that characterizing the normal is an essential thing to do to understand what's out there. So let me conclude the session by thanking the panelists. It's been a pleasure learning from you. Thanking our Sean and our other invited speakers and our that we've had for some of our data collection sessions. We've learned a tremendous amount from you. And also thank the public for their engagement. I think we were all impressed by the number and level and sophistication of the questions people sent in. We tried to address as many as them that we could in the session. As you heard, NASA, through science.nasa.gov, will provide, there'll be some additional answers provided. Encourage you to go there. Actually, as a non-NASA employee, I'll put in a little ad for science.nasa.gov. NASA does amazing things, and we're learning amazing things about the universe and our planet, and just encourage you to go there and continue to learn and continue to explore. So thank you all.